That's interesting. I mean, three possibilities. I mean, if you're a subjective idealist, maybe you say all there is to the physical world is that it's an appearance in my consciousness. Or maybe if you think the world could be an appearance in God's consciousness or in the universal consciousness. It could be, I guess, the manifestation of consciousness is like consciousness is what's basic and it forms itself into the world. I think either way, consciousness would be fundamental, but yeah, the story is either consciousness represents the world, it pictures the world, or it forms the world. Maybe those are two. In an article I wrote on idealism, I distinguish between what I call anti-realist idealism, where the physical world is just a representation. It's just represented in consciousness. It's just an appearance. And realist idealism that says, no, consciousness actually forms itself into the world. Maybe that would be more like the manifestation view. So both of those are available. There's also the third view, which I was indicating some interest in, that the world is actually something outside consciousness that consciousness can come to know. But I think all three of those are possibilities. But I guess I'm especially sympathetic with some of these realist forms of idealism where the world is in a way a manifestation of consciousness appropriately formed and configured.
Partha asks Professor Chalmers, what impels so many of us to reduce consciousness to brain or mind or even ignore it completely? And it's a good question. I mean, you know Daniel Dennett, you know him personally for a long time. What's that perspective? Is it simply the prestige and the dominant worldview of material science? Is that it, or is there something else?
I think, I take materialism very seriously. It's a view that has a lot of power, a lot of science, a lot of explanation behind it. So there's you wouldn't want to reject the materialist worldview without very good reasons. And I think ultimately consciousness does provide a good reason. But I understand people that think, materialism is the view that we ought to take most seriously because of its support by science. But some people do that in a thinking, reflective way. Daniel Dennett certainly does that. He's very reflective about it. And he realizes that he has to take very strong views, take a very strong and rather extreme view to reject consciousness. He ends up saying it's a kind of illusion. And I at least respect that, because that's a kind of materialism that pays the price, of being a materialist. You have to say consciousness is an illusion to be a materialist. And that's not a bullet I can bite, but I respect paying the price here. Other people, as Partha mentions, don't so much reflect on it, but just ignore it completely. And I think that maybe that's easy. I mean, you were saying before how it's easy to look, consciousness makes you aware of contents. Maybe some people just pay attention to contents and miss the consciousness. It's not always introspectively apparent. The philosopher G.E. Moore said consciousness, the thing itself, is transparent or diaphanous. You look straight through consciousness to the world, and it takes some attention to pay attention to consciousness, as people in this tradition will know.
Absolutely. I mean, you mentioned Moore, and I can't resist asking you this, although we are totally out of time. But when I read that, the diaphanous, the transparent nature of consciousness, what struck me immediately from an Advaitic perspective is, look, you are treating consciousness as an object. And that's why when you pay attention to it, you think it's now like a transparent object, but it's not an object at all. You're not looking through consciousness. It's consciousness which is looking. Consciousness can never become an object.